The history panel is one of the most useful panels that you'll find in Photoshop. If you watched the last video, you saw that actually I had the history panel opened on my image where I was doing the perspective crop of the building, and I used the history panel to be able to step backwards. So if you're already familiar with the idea of stepping backwards or undoing, in Photoshop you can use the keyboard shortcut Control-Z to undo one time. And if I go up to Edit from the main menu, I can see right there I have Undo Control-Z. But if you want to step backwards more than once, you have to use a rather long keyboard shortcut, which is Shift Control-Z. Or sorry, Alt Control-Z. The other one was to step forward. So if you like keyboard shortcuts, that's fine. But the history panel is going to record the last 25 steps you made. So you may already have the history panel open. It may be here in one of your panels as a tab, or it may be in one of your docked icons right here. So I have mine already open, but I'm going to close it and then show you how to get it open again if you don't have it. So I'm going to go up to Window from my main menu, and this is where I have a list of all of my panels available in Photoshop. The ones that have checks next to them are the ones that are currently open. So I'm going to scroll down to History, and that's going to open it up right over here. And if I need to save my screen real estate and to view my image larger, right now I have my image kind of zoomed out, but if it's in the way, I can just click on the double arrow and it's going to dock it as this little icon here. It's the icon with the 3 squares with the curved arrow. And I click on it and it opens it up again. So at the bottom of my history panel, I have these little dots, which means that this is resizable. And I can click on it and drag it down. So it's going to record my last 25 steps. I'm going to make a couple of steps here. I'm just going to take I'll create a new layer, and you'll see how that's recorded there. I'll take my paintbrush and lower the opacity down. Let's pick a new color. So notice as everything I'm doing is recorded over here in my history panel, and I'm just going to paint over the sky a little bit here. Just really trying to get some motions down or some steps taken down in my history panel. So I did one paintbrush and you see that it's marked once. Every stroke that I make, notice how in my history panel it's being recorded. Go over it again, go over it again, and in my history panel, I'm going to open it up here, it's being recorded. And keep going over here just really so you can see the effect of what's happening in my history panel. Even if I go over here to my layers panel and I lower the opacity, that is being recorded as a step in my history panel as well. So I'm going to scroll all the way down so you can see all of my steps, and this is how I suggest working with a history panel. It's very kind of frustrating to have it as a small window and scrolling all the time. So besides recording my last 25 steps, it always records the way my image looked when I first opened up Photoshop. So if I wanted to see how my image looked before I did this, I'm going to click on the name of the state that I want to go back to. So I want to go back before I did all these brush strokes. I'm going to click on the last thing I did before that, which is the new layer icon. And now I can see the way my image looked. If I want to say, well, I want to see what my image looked like, I'm going to go back down to here, but I'm going to go back and do some changes. I'm going to use this other feature here, which is to create a snapshot. So at this point, I want to kind of keep a snapshot of the way my image looks, but I want to be able to also go backwards. So I'm going to click on the camera icon, and if you look up here at the top, I now have a new snapshot. I have a snapshot of the way my image looked when I opened it originally, and I have a snapshot of the way my image looked at the current state. So now I'm going to go in my history panel and start over before those paintbrushes. And I could choose a different color, for example, and do something similar. I'm just going to paint over it now with blue, and I'm not really doing this the way I would actually do it. I'm creating a lot of different strokes so that you can see how these are recorded on the history panel. And now I'll do my master opacity change over here in my layers panel and lower that down. And now I can take another snapshot. So I have now my original image the way it looked, and then I have a snapshot with my kind of pink sky, and then I have a snapshot with my bluer sky. These snapshots will not save when you close Photoshop. All of this is gone. So if I'm interested in creating different versions, saving these snapshots as different versions, I can now go to the last icon in here, which is to create a new document for my current state. So if I'm on snapshot 2 and I click on that, it really looks like nothing happened, but I'm actually over in a new document. Look up here at my tab. This document is now called snapshot 2. My other image, which was called ruler, is back over here. So I'm going to click on snapshot 1 and create a new document. So this is a great, really fast way to create multiple versions of your image. And I'm now on an image called snapshot 1. And over here in this tab, I can pull up snapshot 2 and go back here to my original. So if I'm back here on my original and I click back to be active on my last state, I'm just going to grab my paintbrush. I'm just going to do a couple of quick strokes here just so you can see that I've done a few things. I'll move my opacity up. I just want to make some marks on my document to point out. Now, if I'm in my history panel and I say, ooh, what did I do? Maybe my little kid came over and she was playing with the computer and she made those marks and I didn't like it. So now I want to get rid of those. I'm going to go back, click on the state before all of that happened. And now I just want to point out when I do my own corrections, I've deleted all of those other states that were temporarily grayed out. So it's going to start over. So if you go back in your history panel, see how these are grayed out, and now when I make my next move, it's going to erase all of those other states. So just something to keep in mind. If I want to go back here, be able to take a snapshot or be able to preserve this and then not lose these steps, what I want to do is go back here, create a snapshot, and now I can go back to where I was working. So this is a great way to work so that you don't have to feel limited. You can make experiments in your images, create snapshots, continue working, or delete your history. You can use this delete option, but I never really find it that practical. I think it's a little more practical to create snapshots. Sometimes people like to delete states so they can always keep a current 25 here. But what I recommend is don't worry about the 25. If you feel like you're at an interesting point in your image and you're hesitant to go forward because you don't want to damage anything you have, instead just take a snapshot and then move forward, and you can always go back to that snapshot and make a new copy or preserve your image from that state. So the history panel again is a really useful panel. Most of the time it's going to be docked and you're going to just see it as a little icon. And when you do work with it, I suggest that you open it up so you can see all of your states at once.